Good day and welcome to this edition on the impact of economic sanctions on Zimbabwe. You will recall that since about 2001, Zimbabwe has been under what are called targeted economic sanctions. These sanctions were actually adopted following the adoption of ZDERA, or the Zimbabwe Development and Economic Recovery Act in the United States of America during that period, following the takeover, the massive occupation of farms, that was the white-owned farms, which were occupied by the war veterans starting from about February 2000. Now, since the adoption of the international sanctions, which the US at that time called targeted economic sanctions, has been going on ever since. And much has been said about the impact of these economic sanctions on the economy generally, as well as on individuals. So, it's a very contested terrain, because we have those who argue that Zimbabwe is in a very bad economic state because of these sanctions. And yet we have another group of people which argues that Zimbabwe is in the bad economic state not because of sanctions, but because of many other factors. So this is a very interesting subject because it has engaged people in public sphere of life, the academics, scholars, politicians, and everybody else trying to understand exactly what happened and what the cause of the economic meltdown is. So in this presentation, I will endeavor to answer the questions to do with whether the economic sanctions adopted by the international community are actually responsible for the suffering that the people of that country, Zimbabwe, are enduring on a day-by-day basis. So I have structured my discussion along these lines. I have three questions that I will endeavor to answer. The first one says, are economic sanctions the real cause for Zimbabwe's economic situation? In other words, are the people suffering in that country because of economic sanctions? Is the economy failing to recover just because of the economic sanctions? That's the first question. And then the next question is, besides sanctions, are there any other factors that might be responsible for the current state of affairs in Zimbabwe? And then, of course, this is the third and the minor question, which says, who is the target of the sanctions? Is it the nation? Is it the national economy? Is it all the people put together, or it's some specific individuals? Because this is where the bone of contention seems to be, where people do not have understanding of exactly who is being targeted and what is the aim of the sanctions, and so on and so forth. Now, just to hit the road running, the first question, which says, what are the sanctions? And in fact, the one who says, are the sanctions the real cause of the economic situation in Zimbabwe? This question has been raised first, but it shall be answered maybe, let me say, last, for a number of reasons. As we have just begun, we have asked whether the sanctions are the cause, but unless and until we have explored other alternative explanations, we will not be able to answer whether indeed the sanctions are responsible for the economic situation in Zimbabwe. Now, By sanctions, what are we talking about? We are referring to restrictions in the economic interaction between one political entity, this time Zimbabwe, and the rest of the international, or rather the rest of the political entities, that is other countries. And we are saying when a country is under sanctions, there is a restriction in terms of the trade that can be conducted between the countries, whether a particular country under sanction is able to access those foreign markets, and whether it can import whatever it requires from the other markets. So it's all about whether the country is able to import or export goods between itself and the other market. Now, so coming back now to the issue of whether the sanctions are the cause for the economic situation that Zimbabwe finds itself in, we will remember that as early as 1990, 1991, Zimbabwe was in a very bad debt, unable to service its IMF loans and other loans from multilateral lending agencies in the international money markets. As a result, Zimbabwe was then somehow coerced into adopting the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, which then went on to, encourage and enforce such measures as trade liberalization, the removal of tariffs and barriers between Zimbabwe and other trading partners, the issue of trade liberalism, removal of barriers, and basically opening up its market and adopting some of these neoliberal ideas that were emanating from the Washington Consensus to do with market fundamentalism and trying to promote fundamental markets. Trying to elevate markets and market rules to be the main players in terms of shaping the economic trajectory of the country. So I spoke briefly here about the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, ESAP, just as a way of highlighting the fact that you see, Zimbabwe's problems began much earlier than the period of sanctions that we're actually going to be looking at. So that by the year 2000, Zimbabwe had already been unable to service its debt, its international debt to these multilateral lending, institutions, monetary institutions like these Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund, as well as the World Bank and many other lenders. So Zimbabwe was already in a very bad state by the year 2000. So the entry of the war veterans into the farms previously owned by white farmers really dealt a serious blow to the economy of Zimbabwe. That to this day the economy has not been able to recover. So what I'm saying here as a foundation is that maybe there were other factors before sanctions that explain the state of affairs as it is today. So by 1999, you find that Zimbabwe had already been blacklisted by international lending agencies. It was no longer eligible to borrow from, those international lending agencies, because as a sovereign, it was a bad debtor. The country had become a bad debtor. Therefore, international lending agencies were no longer willing to take the risk to lend to Zimbabwe. So maybe this leads us to our next question, which says, what other factors are responsible for the bad economic situation in Zimbabwe. Now, my own proposition and my own observation is that Zimbabwe follows very bad economic policies. Those policies on their own make it impossible for anyone to even, nest the idea of making an investment in Zimbabwe. So in other words, the territory and the country is a very bad investment destination, not only for international investors, but even for the local people themselves. I have advanced an argument that there is enough money inside of Zimbabwe to turn that economy around, only if there was a change in the way the economy is run. So really to blame the international community for the sanctions is actually to look for an easy scapegoat, because it is the bad economic policies of that country which frustrate investment from any quarters, including investment by the local people themselves. If you ask an average Zimbabwean whether they really want to invest in their country or not, the answer is that, those who are staying there will have to invest anyway, because it's all about trying to eke out a living on a day-to-day basis. But long-term and large-scale investment in Zimbabwe is a risk that not many, in fact, no business person will want to, indulge in that kind of a risk. I remember a few years ago there was much fanfare and celebration when Aliko Dangote of Nigeria toured Zimbabwe, and then there were indications that he might want to invest there. I happened to have been talking to some friends and some associates during that time, and I ended up saying to one of them, you know what, business is not social welfare. So people who run business will not just put in their monies in an investment destination where there are risks and uncertainties, incalculable risks, those that one cannot even, think about or anticipate, because the market rules are flouted day by day. The environment is unstable, it's uncertain, you don't know what to expect in Zimbabwe. So what I'm saying in short is that there are bad economic policies. This is how I would like to unpack it. Because of the bad economic policies, we have unpredictable and unstable monetary systems. For instance, take an example of money. Zimbabwe is one territory, it's one country, one state, it's one legal jurisdiction where money and what it is very unpredictable. Because you see, that money is not based on any standard that anybody can really predict. For instance, we know that we have monies that are based on commodity standards, such as could be gold or silver or some other valuable commodity or mineral, as used to be the case in the past. And then we have those that are based on fiats or decrees by the authorities. Now, you see, Zimbabwe is a fiat, it runs a fiat currency. But how is that currency different from all the other currencies in the world which are based on a fiat standard? There is a lot of interference by government in the money. You put money in a bank today, you are not assured that you will get it tomorrow. Because overnight, government can issue a statutory instrument which is just going to extinguish your monetary value overnight, at the stroke of a pen, at just the command of the sovereign or the president or whoever is in authority at that time. So, because of that, we have an unstable monetary system, if there's a monetary system in the first place to talk about. For instance, massive printing of money in the period before 2008 had actually led to a situation where the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe exhausted all numbers, all figures that one could ever think about. I remember when we were in school, our teachers would teach us to read maybe up to 1,000, and then they would tell us from 1,000 you get to 10,000, then you get to 100,000, and then you get to 1,000,000, and then 1,000,000,000. Then they would even say you count up to, then they say infinite. They use that word infinite to mean that there's a point beyond which you cease to count because the things will be so many. But you see, Zimbabwe exhausted all those numbers. I think it is the only country in the world, and this is unprecedented, the only country where $1 trillion has ever been printed on one note. Now, as if that was not enough, one day they woke up with a statutory instrument that people must take all those coins that had been devalued by inflation and go and use them. And people were shocked. And then, when they realized that the whole thing was not sustainable, they introduced a multi-currency basket where they used different currencies as legal tender. And that brought a little bit of stability when the rand of South Africa, the pula of the United States of the pula of Botswana, the dollar of the United States of America, the pound of the United Kingdom, and the rupee of India, was it? They were used, among them, of course, the renminbi, that is the yuan of China. Those monies were used in the multi-currency system. And then it brought a semblance of stability. And then while people were still excited with that, at least they were now able to conduct business, though it was very problematic, but there was stability in the market. Overnight, the government issued another statutory instrument to the effect that trading in those currencies had become a criminal offense. If anybody was caught doing so, they would be prosecuted. Now, you see, then from there on, they introduced what they call the bond dollar, and then whilst you're still looking at that, they will tell you that the RTG. There is a lot to think about, especially when you are not sophisticated when it comes to understanding that economic jargon. It really just raises the transaction costs and makes transactability very, very difficult. So this is just a highlight of some of the economic policies that make it very, very difficult for anybody to run business in Zimbabwe. So the issue of lack of investment really emanates not only from politics and from sanctions, but also from the market itself. The unpredictability of the economic environment makes it very, very unlikely for anybody to want to invest in that jurisdiction, in that territory. Of course, there is a lot of unethical business practices there. It is only the politically connected who are assured of, conducting trade, conducting business without interference. If you are not a member of the ruling elite, or if you are not connected to the ruling elite, whatever business or establishment you make, it does not have security, because you see, the law is just used haphazardly, and by statutory instruments, decisions are taken which extinguish the rights of business people overnight. As we proceed, you will see some of these issues. We are talking here about a controlled market. In this controlled market, the rules are not clear, number one. Number two, the rules are not consistent. So if you make an investment, for instance, today, you are not assured that in the next month, the rules in terms whereof you undertook that investment will still be applicable. They could change overnight at the whims and at the caprices of those who are in government. So as a result, you have a scenario whereby thinking of investing, you don't exactly know whether you should go ahead or not, because you are not assured whether you will continue to enjoy the fruits of that investment. So I'm arguing here that there is need to stabilize the investment climate. There is need to adopt laws that are predictable, the kind of laws that would secure the rights of investors, so that whoever plants a vine or a vineyard is assured of eating the fruits of the vine. But if you are going to grow vines and you are not assured of the grapes that come therefrom, but somebody else will come out because they are politically connected to harvest by your vineyard, then surely there's no reason why you should go ahead and plant a seed, because it's not profitable for any reason. So what makes the investments very insecure? There are historical reasons. Maybe let's take a look at the historical timeline that explains some of these things, of the issues that we are talking about. The land grabs that took place in the year 2000 actually affected a lot of things. While some people will argue that it was politically expedient to do it for whatever reasons, the issue is that the land grabs did not only affect the farms, they affected every other sector of the economy. Now, this is how it happened. Take an example of a bank like the Barclays Bank or the Standard Chartered Bank, which had advanced a loan to a farmer, say a farmer at Philani Ndlovu, to maintain the fence, to maintain the fire guard, and maybe to even grow a crop, buy seed, fertilizer, and to pay the workers. Now, whilst that farmer was still servicing the loan, war veterans came and took over that farm. And then the next thing, the bank wanted its money from the farmer, who had taken a loan, and that loan had been based on, the private deposits of different people who used that particular bank as their deposit bank. So now the bank wants the farmer to service the loan, and the farmer is unable to do so. Then the bank says to the farmer, okay. In fact, as the bank continues to pressurize the farmer then says to the bank, oh well, you can take over the farm. And now the bank can't take over any farm, because though the farmer still has the title deed to the farm, it is practically impossible for the bank to even institute a legal proceeding whereby it can now take over the farm for the bad debt. So what we are basically saying is that the banking sector became a victim of the farm invasions. And that's one area where you hardly hear people talk, but that's exactly how it happened. It affected the financial services sector. And not only that, you see, those farms were producing raw materials for different industries. Take an example, the dairy industry, which would require milk from the farms. Once the farms were no longer able to provide the milk because the cows had been slaughtered, it meant that milk products such as cheese and other related products could no longer be produced. So then there had to be a laying off of the people that were working in that dairy industry, or the industry that relied on those dairy products. The same applied to those in the food industry, such as production of meal, flour, rice, or talk about those in the beef industry, the mutton industry, and so on and so forth. So you find that those land grabs had very far-reaching effects on the economy, and that is yet to be adopted. And as if that was not enough, it is unfortunate that uncertainty prevails even unto this day, because farm invasions never came to a point where it could then be said, now we've taken all the farms, we are stable, those who got the farms can now go ahead and work in those farms. The simple reason being that the new occupants of those farms are not, they don't have title over that land. So they occupy that land on the basis of precarious title. They can be moved anytime as the government pleases. So you find that because of that reason, you can't invest. You can't invest really in a piece of land where you uproot the plants, the trees, and then you establish a very good arable piece of land, and then you fertilize it. And whilst you are still doing that, the next thing you'll be told that you must move because it has been given to so and so who's well connected. So they cannot really be investment. Remember, people don't invest for the sake of it. They invest for returns. So we've got all those issues. So in other words, we are saying the issues of the farms, the collateral, the mortgages that had been taken against those farms just vanished into thin air. The lender was not able to recover whatever loan the lender had given to the borrower. And how about the issue of the controlled grain marketing boards and the cotton marketing boards? You find that because the markets are pegged and controlled, the farmer may produce at a certain cost. But when it goes now to the fact that products must all be traded through government sanctioned channels, that farmer then goes on to sell the product at a pegged price, sometimes which price is below the production price. Just hypothetically, I would use an example and say a farmer produces a ton of maize, that is grain, or a ton of cotton at, for argument's sake, let us say at $10,000, whether it's RTGS or whatever dollar denomination is being used at that time. He produces at 10,000, but you find that the marketing board maybe pegs the price at 6,000, for argument's sake. That farmer is not able to then recover the 4,000 that was actually spent in the production in the farm. So if you are going to control markets like that, you make it unprofitable for people to do any work, because people don't work just for the sake of it. They work for profit. Now it doesn't make sense to produce a ton of grain at $10,000 and then to sell it at 8,000 or even 9,000, less than the production cost. It doesn't make sense. So this issue of controlling prices is the first enemy of economic productivity. Like it or not, if people are going to be excited that government is controlling food prices, then they don't understand that indirectly they are shooting themselves in the foot. Because as long as farmers are expected to produce and sell below production cost, then there is no incentive to produce anything. They will just stop. And that's how products keep dwindling and dwindling in the market. Nobody is going to produce anything just at a cost which is higher than they are able to recover. So those are some of the issues. Talk about mining and how it has been taken over by gangsters called Mashurupi, who go around grabbing mines and mining rights, robbing people. You know, that kind of a monopoly to those connected with government, it is a problem. And unless those issues are resolved, there is just no way people can continue to work productively. This is not politics. This is economics. These are practical issues that must be resolved in order for the country to move forward. Still, it's talking about the controlled market, the rigged market, the manipulated market. I'll take on a very recent, one of the recent developments, if I could say. Remember the issue of, the transport sector, where government, under the guise that it is controlling the spread of COVID-19, does not give guidelines to transport operators, but rather bars them from operating. And then goes on to institute a ZUBCO monopoly, and then goes on to say all owners of minibuses and all owners of buses must affiliate to that ZUBCO consortium or franchise, whatever they call it. And then in that franchise, the prices are paid. The people that submit their buses to operate under that consortium have a lot that doesn't go well for them. For instance, they have to maintain the buses, and then somebody is giving them a salary on their own buses which they have purchased. And some of those people purchased those buses on higher purchase, and they are still servicing the loans. So if you all of a sudden in overnight decide to prohibit the use of those buses in the market, you are actually making it impossible even for the banks that advanced loans to those bus owners to recover, because the bus owner can no longer service the loan. So in other words, these things are connected to the banking sector and to every other sector in the economy. So whatever decision is made in respect of one sector of the economy will eventually affect all the other sectors of the economy, and people must understand those connections, because unless we fully understand the connections, we will continue to celebrate some of these policies that are adopted to the demise of not only the country but everybody else that lives in it and considers it a home. So you see, this issue of adopting and instituting initiating monopolies to restrict players and make the operation of business impossible in that environment makes Zimbabwe a very bad investment destination, not only for foreigners but even for the people that stay there. So what about the issue of the brain drain? You see, Zimbabwe is one country that has produced highly skilled people in almost every sector of the economy. But those people are not enriching Zimbabwe. You know, Zimbabwe is lauded as having had the highest level of education, and that is not a lie. We see it wherever we are. Zimbabweans are very skilled. Wherever they are, whatever job or work they do it with so much skill, so much dedication, so much determination. Different countries are benefiting from Zimbabwe's technicians, from Zimbabwe's doctors, medical doctors, and all other doctors in different fields of human learning, nurses, talk about farming, talk about all sectors of the economy. These people are enriching other countries, but they cannot go back and enrich their own country because they are not welcome. So without the brains that Zimbabwe has developed, how would it be able to move forward? Because other people are actually enjoying the benefit of the investment that Zimbabwe made in education. Countries that didn't invest as much are actually enjoying cheap labor. Because even wherever those Zimbabweans are, they are not getting the best jobs, most of them. They are restricted, which basically means everybody is suffering as a result. So we are saying that, Zimbabwe has inaugurated very skewed and very unfair public and private competition laws, making it very difficult for people to establish businesses and run businesses efficiently. What do I mean by public public competition law? The idea in any normal jurisdiction is that there should be enabling laws for the establishment and regulation of businesses, different businesses. That is required and that is operational in every country. For instance, people that want to participate, say, in the chemical industry would need to be regulated so that we don't have people that don't have skill who will end up causing explosions and then affecting lives and everybody else in the economy. I just cited an example of the chemical industry, but every other industry, whether it's engineering, education, health, people that participate in those industries must be regulated in terms of the law. But now, come to think of it, in Zimbabwe, licensing of prospective, entrepreneurs, those who want to invest in the different sectors of the economy, that licensing is restricted. It is only accessible to those that are connected. For instance, remember we spoke about the ZUPCO consortium. Only those who are connected to the ruling party can have access to that ZUPCO consortium. So in other words, you might have a bus, but you may not be able to plug it into the ZUPCO consortium and use it to operate and carry people around. For the simple reason that it may be impossible because if you don't get the license, you cannot then run that bus. So in other words, we are saying the property rights of the people are restricted at willward without prior warning. You just wake up one day and you are told your property has been actually regulated out of industry. So you can no longer now use your property. So it's like it's expropriation. It's a kind of expropriation which we would call a creeping expropriation. Because though the property is not taken from you, your inability to use the property just because the law restricts it is actually dispossessed you of the rights in that property in a way. So they're not an express form of expropriation. We come to talk about it as creeping expropriation, and it is as bad as express expropriation of property. So because of the unfair and unstable and unpredictable competition laws, you find that only those who are connected can get licenses. Those who are not connected are not entitled to any of those licenses. So that makes the production, participation in industry or in any investment endeavor almost a non-starter. So you've got domestic as well as domestic investment is discouraged before we even talk about international investment or foreign direct investment. Because if we cannot get the locals, the indigenous, the citizens to invest, then surely it is daydreaming to expect foreign investors to come and invest. I think it's also got to do with a misunderstanding of what investment is. While money is a very essential element in investment, it is not the only investment that people can make. When people take a hoe or a plow, that ox-drawn plow, or an axe or a plane, and start working in that simple and rudimentary kind of fashion, they are investing. So for somebody to have a warped mind that investment only means going overseas to Davos and elsewhere and luring investors. That does not make sense, because the people must be willing at village level to wake up and do that which is within their means. It doesn't have to come from Davos. It doesn't have to come from Washington or from London or from Lisbon. That is very archaic and neo-colonial thinking. People are able to invest wherever they are. So in the first place, there must be an enabling environment for those people in the village to stand up and invest within their means. For instance, if people need a deep tank, a very simple thing in the village, they should be able to pick up their picks and shovels, go and dig a hole, then look for bricks, line it up and plaster it, and then pour water and have their cows dipping there. It does not really need the intervention of government from the capital city. So it is a very warped mind which says that people are not able to invest just because there is no money. What money? People have money in their hands. What is money? Money is not the paper or the coins. Money is value. So when one person is able to produce grain in that piece of land that they have, they can then be able to sell to another neighbor who doesn't have the grain. Then they get, so that's how trade begins. So until the people are empowered, the country will not move forward. And what is this empowerment that I'm talking about? These laws that restrict people's ability at the simplest level of human engagement, they are the ones that are the cause for this lack of development. So instead of restricting people and putting laws that make it impossible for people to participate in economic emancipation and freedom, then that is the explanation for all this. So first and foremost, there must be enabling laws, and that does not need or require any outside intervention. ZDERA or the international community and the sanctions have nothing to do with growing maize in the village, growing vegetables in the village, growing tomatoes in the village. That has got nothing to do with sanctions. So at the end of the day, if we have a government that is going to destroy people's property the way it did in 2005 under Operation Ramatswina, or the way it did recently, demolishing fully constructed buildings built on expensive material, that affects the GDP. I don't know where people are missing it. The GDP is the gross domestic product. It's got to do with all the productive work that has been done in a particular year. The house is built. Because you see, when the house is built in any one part of the country, it is improving the housing conditions of the people of that country. But if you're just going to go out arbitrarily, destroy, and take pride in sending bulldozers to destroy work that is hours and hours of labor, human labor, which is an investment. When people work up for days on end to go and build a house, it's hours because they need to eat while they are going there, and time is money. So if you're going to destroy that, you are destroying the economy, you are destroying the GDP. So at the end of the day, you should not turn around and say you want investors to come from somewhere, because you've destroyed the investment. That's how people need to understand this. We should not be missing this. We should not be, looking elsewhere for answers. No. Right, I spoke earlier about the abuse of the monetary sovereignty, where I said money is changed like underwear. We have the state that assumes that money is the paper, and so it goes around seeking investments. People must come, Ali Dangote must come with money from Nigeria. But we have people that have money in Zimbabwe who cannot invest because the investment area or destination is unpredictable. It is insecure. So there is issue of unpredictability, insecurity, arbitrariness of administrative action. So you don't know whether if you invest today, you will have your investment tomorrow. So as a result, what you do, you stop investment because it's not profitable. So because money is changed at will every now and again. Some people pejoratively say there are 3 daily newspapers in Zimbabwe. And guess which ones they are? There's the Chronicle, there's the Herald, and there is the Zimbabwe Dollar. Those are the 3 daily newspapers of Zimbabwe. So this is very, very important to understand. So as long as we have insecure property rights, where title has not even been allocated to the new occupants of the land that was taken away from the whites, it means that nobody has any incentive to produce on that land, because the tenure remains precarious. If you invest today, you are not assured whether the investment will still be yours tomorrow. And so we have a multitude of these problems, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Now, our third question was, who is the target of the economic sanctions in Zimbabwe? And this is a very, very simple question and very, very easy to dispose of. Those are targeted economic sanctions. They are targeting specific individuals who were listed. They are not meant for everybody. They are meant for those who were listed as violators of human rights according to that Zdera Act. So those people are listed. It's not everybody. That's why every other Zimbabwean is able to go anywhere and everywhere in the world and apply business and do business there. Get jobs, do whatever they want. Because it's not Zimbabweans who are under sanctions. It is those who are in the government of Zimbabwe who are under sanctions. Those people have been specifically named one after the other. Let us not be deceived to think that we are targets of sanctions. We are not. Only those people listed there are under sanctions. So people should stop looking for solutions to problems that don't exist. So this whole rhetoric about lift Zimbabwe sanctions and so on, it's just misdirected. In fact, it's a smokescreen for failure by those who are in the higher echelons of power. It is just, creating a smokescreen in order to divert attention and conceal the real matters. What are the real matters? Bad economic policies, bad governance, failed governance, rigged and manipulated market, absence of free market rules. So because of that, people are living in a controlled environment. This, you see, the issue is that the controlled environment and the controlled markets failed in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, that's USSR. Now, you wonder why somebody is trying to reinstitute and inaugurate ideas that were experimented on, and they saw their time, they failed. That's why the USSR abandoned this communist project in 1989. Mikhail Gorbachev had actually seen that this thing wasn't working. Hence the adoption of glasnost and perestroika ideas, approaches, and the eventual abandonment of this controlled market. So you have somebody trying to control the market well after the experience historically in the whole world shows that controlled markets don't work. And by the way, Cuba has been under sanctions since I think 1959, but Cuba is one of the most viable states. For your own information, Cuba sponsored the liberation war of Zimbabwe. Joshua Nkomo and Zipra were sponsored by Cuba. Cuba actually sponsored Zipra. They sponsored MPLA in Angola. They sponsored even the African National Congress in South Africa. Cuba has been very instrumental, even in sending out doctors to different parts of the world. It is one of the most viable states, even though it has been under economic sanctions since 1959. For your own information, sanctions do not cause a country to collapse. They cause a country to actually look inside and be resilient and start developing its own resources to self-sustain. That's exactly how Ian Smith was able to survive between 1965 and 1979. Smith ran Rhodesia under sanctions from 1965 to 1979. And by that time, Rhodesia was a very viable state. Now, some people will say Smith was not totally under sanctions. He was. He traded with South Africa at that time, and Zimbabwe is trading openly with South Africa even this time. So in the SADC, Zimbabwe is trading very freely, so much that it could actually sustain itself just by trading within the SADC region. So this whole idea about sanctions making it impossible for the country to move forward, they are just deceptive. These are ideas that are meant just to deceive people and to divert people's attention from the real matters. So be careful not to be deceived. Now, just as a conclusion, remember our first question was, are the sanctions responsible for the situation, that is the economic situation in Zimbabwe? The answer is that no. Zimbabwe is a failed state because the state has been captured by a small clique of individuals who are using the institutions of the state for personal enrichment, for the advancement of personal agendas. As a result, the economy of the country is serving private interests. It is not serving the interests and the welfare of the citizens. So in other words, the state has been captured, or in some cases I would like to say, thinking about it in other words, I would say it is a failed state, because it is a state that is no longer able to fulfill its primary duties, goals and functions. So sanctions are not the cause for the failure, because locals cannot invest there. Why are locals not investing? Because the environment is not permissive. Why is the environment not permissive? Because the government makes it impossible for people to invest. So next time, before you start calling for sanctions to be lifted, you must rethink, because sanctions are not the problem in that country. Thank you very much for being part of this presentation. I hope it has been enlightening to you. Remember to share it with others so that we may get people to understand fully what the problem is. Enjoy a great day.